to this computer. Okay, here we go with episode 1 here on Hometown Hockey. This is something that Tim Cornett and I dreamed up in the last couple weeks. My name's Chris Savard with Hometown Hockey, my buddy here, Tim Cornett. We basically come up with this idea that Tim's written some really cool one-on-one pieces with Kirby Reichel and Mr. Renault and some great hockey Spitz fans over the time. And it was a lot of work to kind of do the interview and then transcribe it into a written story. So we thought, why don't we do it now that everybody's doing these Zoom meetings? Let's have these Zoom meetings and we'll kind of record them and then eventually put them up onto the site so that everybody can see kind of the interview. And I think it's a little bit more lively because it's a little bit more relaxed. And our hope is that we can turn this into really something where it's, 3 guys sitting around having a pint, talking hockey. So obviously we're in Windsor, Essex, so we're going to promote the Frank beers. I think the boys are all kind of having something local, something craft. There we go. That's the Franks. What do you got, Timmy? All right.
I got a sandwich.
So this is episode 1. I'll let Tim introduce our guests in a couple seconds here. But we're basically going to split back and forth. So Tim grew up all his life here in Windsor and is a Spitz fan. And we moved here in 2012 and are now Spitz fans. And so Tim's going to take the ball mostly on these Spitfire calls. And I'm going to take the ball mostly on the Cornwall Royals calls. Our first guest from the Cornwall Royals, probably sometime next week, will be Darren Colburn from Corner Brook, Newfoundland. Another good interview. So, but today I'll let Timmy introduce our guests from the Windsor Spitfires.
All right, Windsor Spitfires, former captain and born in London in 1985. Is that right, Ryan? Okay, and played for the Sun County Panthers. Came up through that, and then became drafted by the Spitz in 2000, I believe. Ryan?
Yeah, 99, 2000, whatever that draft was. There.
And do you remember your reaction when you got the news?
Yeah, I mean, I was honestly, I'll give you context. I thought I was going to be a first 2-round pick, and it was the first year that it was online, so we were sitting at home.
Okay.
And, the first 2 rounds went by, and I was disappointed, didn't get drafted.
Sure.
And actually got the call from Tom Webster, and maybe we get into that after. But Tom Webster called me about middle of the 3rd round and congratulated me that I'd just been drafted by the Windsor Spitfires. So. Incredible feeling.
I bet it was. Tom Webster, great guy, great Spitfire coach, great, just a great ambassador for the game, great guy. And unfortunately, we lost him about a month ago or so. And good guy. And he had a connection with the Calgary Flames as well when you were drafted in 03 by Calgary.
Yeah, he did. Tom had left the team towards the end of that year and actually had just become a scout with the Flames organization leading up to that draft. And I got drafted to the Flames and literally the first handshake getting drafted by the Calgary Flames is again Tom Webster. So,
that's
relation. A lot of great things, a lot of people. One of those guys that was beyond the game of hockey and was just a true gentleman.
Yeah, for sure. He was involved right to the end there. He would come out for alumni games and whatnot, and always a great guy. So you wore number 21.
I did.
Any reason for that?
I think it was available. That's it. I'm 16 years old. They just go, here you go, kid. Here's your number.
Right.
I had to think back because I turned into a bit of a suitcase later in my career, and I've worn 21, 28. I only know I remember I wore 28 because the guys, for some reason, this is, Chad Ochocinco. Remember when he changed his name to Ochocinco?
Yep.
At the same time, I ended up picking number 28 in the AHL. And the guys got me a vanity license plate that said Dos Ocho. So I remember I was number 28 for a while. 51 I picked up. I wore 43. I think in Kitchener I was number 3, which is about the equivalent of the goals that I scored that year. So. Not good.
The number was never a big thing. It's just kind of what you got, basically.
Yeah, no meaning. I mean, I grew up playing for Sun County, I was number 17. But that number was already taken, I believe, by Cam Jansen when I got to the Spit. So I wasn't taking it from him.
Yeah, he probably wasn't going to give it up that easy, right?
No.
And you played 3.5 seasons with Windsor, and all of them at the barn.
Yep.
Do you remember your first OHL goal?
Yeah, I do actually. Oddly enough, I have the goal on a plaque in my garage because
Right on.
All of my hockey nostalgia is now garage worthy. It's not in-house worthy. But my goal is on a plaque. It was the 5th goal in a 6-1 loss to the Plymouth Whalers.
Oh wow!
Yeah, in I don't know, maybe 7th, 8th kind of game in the O.
Right on. Now, how about the first game in the O? Do you remember that?
Yep, I remember that one. I don't necessarily remember the game so much,
Okay.
but I remember the introduction. And much like the way that the barn kind of operated, and it had its creaks and nostalgia and history, if you will.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it wasn't the most technologically advanced arena. I think someone was still behind the scoreboard changing the numbers as well. But the power went out on the PA system as we were being introduced. So the lights went down, and someone must have turned off the power to the PA system. And this is halfway through. And as only Windsor would be, there's a big guy kind of just sitting up above the entranceway. And he took it upon himself to start announcing the rest of the numbers. So they stopped at number 10.
That's cool.
So I was actually announced by some fan in the stands that sat and wrote, 201, Windsor, Ontario, number 21, Ryan Donally. So I'll never forget that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. The glitz and glamour of Windsor Arena.
Oh, that's for sure. So many stories, so many fans, and now you played a long time after the badge lady. But did you ever hear the stories about the badge lady?
No.
Okay, she's the one that sat behind the net, and she had a whole outfit with badges, and all it was with badges of the guys and buttons and whatnot. And she would get the boys running, and if you weren't playing good, she let you know it, and you could hear it all the way through the barn.
I have a story about the barn that very few people know. So this is after, because I ended up starting to coach at the University of Windsor, and we were still at the barn. And it was kind of the last year that the barn was in existence, and before they turned into the salt mine or whatever. And I'd become pretty good buddies with the rink attendant. So in the summer, we thought we play in this league called the BHL, Beer Hockey League.
Yeah.
We thought it'd be a great idea to do our draft just like the NHL and do it in an arena.
Okay.
So what we ended up doing, we got snuck into the barn because we weren't allowed to be in there. But the arena guy said it was good. He turned on the in-bowl lights, but all along the bottom, the inner concourse lights were off because that's where the cameras were.
Oh, yeah.
So we had 38 guys sitting up in the stands behind the players' benches. And we had the coaches for the teams of the BHL on the floor with a projector doing all the announcements. So we're sitting up in the stands having beers and getting drafted in the BHL. And it's honestly, it's one of my favorite stories.
Oh, this is great.
That's awesome.
Cats out of the bag, Fergus Lions.
Any video evidence of that?
Oh, no.
Oh, that's great. And in your time with the Spit, you played with some pretty well-known guys.
Yep.
Steve Ott, Timmy Gleason, Jason Spezza, Wellwood, the list goes on. Jansen we talked about.
Yep.
John Scott Dixon. And Dixon, of course, was in the news this year because Luke Boca broke his Ironman record.
Yep.
So you keep in touch with the guys?
A little bit. You know what? I stayed in touch with Craig Kennedy a little bit. John Scott, actually, we didn't get together when he was down here to help celebrate Luke Boca's passing of him.
Yeah.
But the plan was to. So, I mean, it's one of those things that if I'm in the neighborhood or I'm in Toronto, maybe I'll drop a line to a couple of those guys. If Cam Jansen or whatever is ever up in Windsor, he'll send me a text. Of course, the local guys like the Steve Otts and Wellwoods and those guys, I still stay in touch with quite a bit. And then the next generation, the Harry Youngs of the world, and those guys, they're all BHLers. So I don't know if you've heard the story, but no matter what, or the saying, no matter what league you played in, you always end up in the same league, which is the Beer Hockey League. So we're all playing the same league now.
That's awesome.
All my buddies that played AE and House League were all same team, and guess what? They're probably better than me.
That's great. Now you still play, obviously. I think because I've seen you at the Car Hawk tournament, and what was the Play for a Cure with Jeff Casey, and that was a great tournament. Talk about that. You got to play with some of your former teammates or some of the guys that used to be Spits.
Yeah, there's a few guys that were in that tournament that were ex-Spitfires. One of the cool photos we got was me, Todd Warner, Adam Graves, and Sal Peralta. So the 4 ex-Spitfires, and I've got that photo. I can share it with you guys too. But
you know what? I know the guy who took that photo.
Was it you?
Yeah, it was.
I guess you own the rights to it anyways. But,
you do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Jeff did a phenomenal job of that tournament. I mean, what did we raise? Like $260 some odd $1,000 in your first inaugural year. Tremendous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, of course, it was scuttled this year because of the COVID thing, but I think it's going to come back even better next year, and should be a good tournament again. We'll give Jeff a little plug right there.
Yeah. Donate money to Play for a Cure.
Right on. Good stuff. And we talked about the draft in Calgary. Did you go? Or?
It was in Nashville. So
okay.
Yeah, I did go. It was actually myself and my buddy who's from Windsor here at the time, who I used to train with quite a bit, Dave Lifferton.
Okay.
Got drafted the same year. So he was a Plymouth Whaler and I was a Spitfire, but he went late second round and I went late third round. And despite being 18, we managed to find our way into a nightclub that night and had a pretty cool time in Nashville.
Oh, that would be a good time, for sure.
Did you have any team that you'd hope to go to, or were you just happy to go?
I grew up a Leaf fan. I did. I grew up a Maple Leaf fan. I think it's because my dad was kind of a Wings fan, so I was never, we always did this because it was more fun that way. The Canadian team was pretty cool, and at the time, Calgary was a really good hockey team.
Yeah.
They ended up going to the Stanley Cup Finals in 2003. I think that's when they kind of lost to Tampa.
Oh, that sounds right.
Marty Jelena scored a whole bunch of overtime goals.
Yes.
So going in the next year to Calgary as an 18-year-old was really, really cool. I'll tell you a story about Jerome McGinley if you're interested. But
absolutely.
What an incredible guy. You want to hear it?
For sure. Absolutely.
All right. So I'm giving you all the hockey stories here.
This is great.
First of all, I showed up at training camp and they didn't do rookie camp for some reason. So it was a guy named Cam Cunning, who is another rookie like me, Jerome McGinley, myself, and then Craig Conroy, who was the assistant captain or captain that year.
Yeah.
So this is, we walk in, obviously intimidated. The next day, Cam and I are walking around the mall. So literally we've been in camp for 24 hours. Being what 18-year-olds do, they just walk around the mall. We don't really have any choice. And,
You're like that, Savvy.
Yeah, so we're walking by a store, and all of a sudden we hear, Cam, Ryan. We're like, who is talking to us in Calgary? We don't know anybody.
Who knows us? We've only been here 24 hours.
Yeah, he's from BC. Like, he didn't know anybody there. And sure enough, we kind of look in the store. It's Jerome McGinley like this, waving at us. And we're like, what is Jerome McGinley waving at us? So he comes out of the store. You can tell he's shopping with his family. And he goes, what are you guys up to? And we're like, well, we're going to go, maybe catch a movie or something and go for dinner. He's like, okay, cool. Go to your movie. So it's 6:30. Catch the 7 o'clock film. He's like, when you go out after, go to this place for dinner. Just tell them that who you are and who you came with. And sure enough, at the end of the night, we went to this restaurant. It's now 10 o'clock, and the bill is supposed to come. The waiter comes by and says, "Mr. Ginla's already covered it for you."
No kidding.
So first, what an incredible guy. One of the true
sure.
Sport, but. It's 24 hours in. He remembers our names and then pays for our dinner. Maybe it was comp, regardless, but
no, you can't beat that.
Talk about leadership and wanting to be part of an organization because, this guy just scored 50 goals the year before.
Yeah.
Something that'll always stay with me as far as what leadership is.
Oh, absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
That's a cool story. That's awesome.
That's a great story.
True good guy in sports.
for sure. Captain, you were named captain in 2000. Was it the 04-05 season?
It was, yeah.
And now, who did you replaced? Was it Craig?
Craig Kennedy was the captain the year before me. If I remember correctly, it was myself as the captain. Mitch Maunu was an assistant.
Yeah.
I think Ryan Garlock would have been an assistant captain, and then I think John Scott Dixon also would have been captain, or Dave Lomas, one or the other.
Yeah. And after 29 games that season, you got traded.
I did. Yeah, I requested to be traded.
Did you really?
Yeah, it was one of those things that I didn't have a great run that year. It wasn't going very well for me. The team, if you recall, wasn't necessarily making a run for it. You know, we were kind of like an in-between team. Like we were okay, but we weren't great, and we weren't rebuilding. So I ended up getting traded to Kitchener that year.
Yeah.
I think a trade that worked out best for both worlds because of that. They ended up getting Paul McFarland back in.
Yeah, going to say, and then Paul went on to become captain the next season, right?
Yeah, he was captain the following year. So it was good for me to kind of get out of the house, you know, like as great as it is being a 16-year-old, 17-year-old playing in your hometown.
Yeah.
You know, I was 18, 19 years old at the time. It was time for me to kind of get away.
Sure. Because playing for the hometown, a lot of guys get drafted and they're moving away 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, whatever. You had the benefit of being here for most of your career.
Yeah, I did. It was great for getting through high school and, you know, the life of being an OHLer.
Yeah.
But I think it was necessary for me to kind of fly the coop a little bit and spread my wings just to get prepared for pro hockey, which ended up being about a year and a half later.
Yeah, for sure. And McFarland's been in the news too because he's coming back to the O as a head coach of Kingston.
Yep. Yeah,
So
he's had a heck of a career. He's parlayed into a nice coaching career.
Yep, absolutely. Now, speaking of coaching, you also coached the Vipers.
I did.
And you assistant coach at Lancers.
Yep.
Is it still there? Do you still want to someday step behind a bench?
You know what? Maybe when my little guy grows up to be a 6-year-old and I just, you know, put the pads on and push pucks around. But
good stuff.
I loved it. Like I absolutely loved it. And it was kind of one of those turning points in the life where you go like, I know what pro hockey's like, right? And I know what the coaches were like, and I knew what that would be, you know, move away, spend 3 years somewhere or 2 years somewhere, and then move around and bounce around. And I was 27, 28 at the time when I was coaching LaSalle. Yeah. And I had the decision at that time. I said, am I going to be a hockey coach and pursue this and chase that dream and see where it goes? Or am I going to try to get into the business world? And at the time, I actually made the decision to kind of forego coaching and take my MBA at the University of Windsor. So that kind of catapulted me into the next phase of life. And I haven't really looked back in the coaching world since. Wow.
And it looks like it turned out for you.
Yeah, it's great. I love my organization.
Right on.
No, I absolutely love my job. You know, I've told the story before, but the best thing that ever happened to me was not playing in the NHL because it prepared me for life.
Okay, now let's go back to that. Now you played in the American League and East Coast League, and you ended up in the Anaheim organization.
Yeah, so I spent 3 years under contract with the Flames.
Okay.
And then my last year with the Flames, they didn't qualify me. I actually spent most of the year in the ECHL in Las Vegas. Yeah. Kind of the writing was on the wall. I kind of knew where it was going to go, right? And they knew. Had a great year in Las Vegas and got a 2-year offer from Anaheim following that. So I signed a 2-year deal with Anaheim to follow. 2-year, 2-way.
Okay. And then did you training camp happened and what happened after that?
So training camp with the Ducks, my first year, solid. You know, that year I played the entire year in the American Hockey League. You know, one of those things, knock on the door. If the right guy gets injured, you get called up, that kind of thing.
Yep.
You know, I'm still growing, you know, still kind of finding my ways what type of hockey player I was. So that my 3rd year pro was a good year. And then actually my 4th year pro was the year that I probably would have got my cup of coffee. Actually, that, you know, the GM said it at the time that, you know, you'll play games this year, you earned it the year before.
Yeah.
Training camp got hit from behind really bad by, you know, one of the dirtiest hockey players that's ever played, Francis Lessard, if you know, dirty hockey player.
Really?
one of the goons that just should never have been around, but made a career of it, and he's still probably fighting somewhere.
Jeez.
So I missed, half the season for that concussion. Came back, had another 3 games, got another concussion, like a nothing thing. Came back, played another handful of games, got another concussion. So that year, I think I played. ECHL was at like February. And then I had that 3rd concussion, and basically they said, okay, you're done for the year. So, yeah, and that's actually kind of how I got into coaching. It was I got sent down to the ECHL, and Marty Raymond was the head coach, and they didn't have an assistant coach at the time. So the guys respected me, and they said, well, hey, you can't play for the rest of the year, but you want to be our defense coach. So that's how I got into coaching. Started
all right. Good stuff.
Yeah. So when you were in Anaheim, Ryan, who was the GM that you talked to at the time?
Bob Murray.
So just a little aside to kind of keep on this 2-on-1 theme. I don't know if you knew, but he's a former Cornwall Royal alumni.
Really?
Yeah. So a little bit of a connection into the series here.
Okay. You know what? You start talking about these Cornwall Royals. I've never heard of this organization.
Oh my goodness.
Decades were they around, Chris?
They were the ones that kind of wrote what 3-time Memorial Cup champions looked like before it happened here in Windsor.
Okay.
Some guy named Howard Chuck, some guy named Gilmore, Owen Nolan, right. Matthew Snyder, a couple guys you might have heard of.
Yeah, a couple.
As a Leafs fan.
And they had to do it right in your barn too, right? Because that's
yeah, that's well before Ryan's time. That was 81.
Yeah, he was not
89, you said?
81.
81. I wasn't even a twinkle in my father's eye at that time.
Oh, exactly. I couldn't convince my parents to drive all the way down from Cornwall to the Memorial Cup. We had to watch it on TV.
All right, that's a nice little segue into my next thing here. Being a member of the Spitfire alumni, you probably followed the 3 cup runs very closely.
Very close.
So you went to a lot of games, did you, or did you watch on TV, or a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I followed it as I was still kind of in the game at that time. I was just kind of ending my career as the first kind of the back-to-back was ending.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm staying in touch with them, seeing how well they're doing. Actually Ryan Ellis, I used to live in Tecumseh, and Ryan Ellis lived on the other side of the street with his billet family, so I'd stay in touch with him. Eric Wellwood was the brother of Kyle, who I played with. So Harry Young's a friend, like the connections were definitely there. And the Windsor hockey community, everybody tight to each other. So
absolutely.
I was definitely closer with that group of guys, and, still playing the game. They were a phenomenal team.
Yeah. It was unbelievable.
Incredible team. I mean, one of the best team. Warren Reichel just came out and said best team of decade, right? Or of all time in junior hockey.
Yeah. Just going to bring that up. He just absolutely.
All right.
Now, all the cities that you played in, do you have a favorite city? Do
you want me to be honest, or
I want you to do whatever you want.
Then you saw where I played hockey. Where would you guess my favorite city would be that I played?
I'm guessing Vegas, buddy.
Vegas was a pretty good time, yeah. Being a 21-year-old, 22-year-old pro hockey player in Las Vegas, where literally I was there was no pro sports there at the time. We were celebrities, which is insane. We were celebrities, and I was hanging out with celebrities, and believe it or not, I've still become friends with them.
Really?
The Blue Man Group, I'm not kidding, were at my wedding.
No kidding.
I'm no shit.
Wow, that's awesome. I was just going to say, do you want to drop some names?
I've got photos of David Hasselhoff and myself. We can tell you a story with that. And and I've been to Carrot Top's house, and his name's Scott. I've been out for dinner with him and his mom. I'm not kidding.
Wow, you did it up right.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Cool. You want to hear the story about Hasselhoff?
I do, absolutely.
Because we're shooting the shit in the dressing room here. So my friend Brian Draper, who's an engineer here in Windsor, came down to Las Vegas to drive back home with me. So he flew down, and we were going to drive back home at the end of the year. And we went to see one of the shows in Vegas at the time, which was called The Producers. And David Hasselhoff was one of the main characters. So I was with me, Brian, a guy named Mark Roberts, who's actually a Blue Man, like one of the guys that paint blue and drum.
Really?
And our good friend Tammy, who is the manager of the Blue Man Group. So after the show, Tammy's got, all this access. She's connected in the community.
Yeah.
And we get introduced to David Hasselhoff, and this is right after he was eating hamburgers off the floor. I don't remember this part of his life.
I remember that.
Yeah. This is like 2 weeks later. He hears, hi, I'm Tammy Younglesby, who's the manager.
Yeah.
This is Brian, Ryan, and Mark. They're the Blue Man Group. Even though she said they're with the Blue Man Group, before we can answer, Mark, who is the Blue Man, said, "Yep, Brian and Ryan are Blue Man also. So we're the Blue Man Group. There's 3 guys in the Blue Man Group." So that's where it starts, right? It gets more weird. So David Hasselhoff is ecstatic. Like, he's more excited to see us than we are to see him.
Oh.
So he's yelling at his assistant, "Go get my camera. I want a photo with these guys." So Mark's giving me the elbow, like, play along. So sure enough, David Hasselhoff is taking photos with us. So an engineer from Bell River, a washed-up ECHLer, and a Blue Man, thinking. So somewhere in David Hasselhoff's house, there's a photo of me going like this.
This is.
And then here's the other kicker: is we're in his green room. Like, I can't make this up. We're in the green room, and there's a whole bunch of other families in there waiting to meet David Hasselhoff too. So they're all saying, "How cool is this? We get to meet David Hasselhoff and the Blue Man Group." So I shit you not, there are photos of an engineer from Bell River, myself, the washed-up hockey player, a Blue Man, sitting in some Midwestern town, like on a shelf like that, and they cite that they met the Blue Man Group.
Blue Man Group.
That's a good story.
That's a great story.
Yeah, you can't make that one up.
No, sir.
Only in Vegas, it says.
Yeah. Happens in
Oh,
Vegas.
that's great.
Yeah. It's a good one. That usually gets people laughing.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of entertainment, what's your favorite hockey movie?
Wow, Slapshot's incredible.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
You might say that.
that's pretty hard to beat.
So are there really guys like Ogie Oglethorpe?
Well, it's our guy. His name's Bill Goldthorpe. He's from Thunder Bay. That's who it's patterned after. But no, there are guys like Ogie Oglethorpe. I bet if you were to Google me, you'd probably say that I look like him, because I can't know if you can tell right now, but I've got some pretty thick hair. So if I were to grow it out like I used to and have hockey hair, it was out to here. So I'm 6'5", skating around at 240, fighting people, and maybe I had some of that look too. But sorry, I got to put my hair back in shape. You guys gonna do the same?
Yeah, we're gonna. Yeah. How's that look?
Yeah, exactly.
You're killing me, man.
Sorry.
And here's a little something off the wall here.
Sure.
Is it true you attended the Academy Awards a few years ago as a video guy or something? Is that right?
So back when I was doing my MBA, Vincent Georgie, who's the director of the film festival here, Windsor National Film Festival, was also the program director for the MBA.
Yeah.
And I was the class president, and I started working with the Windsor National Film Festival back when I was a student. And as a class field trip, basically for me and him, because I was working on the project, we went down to Los Angeles to see the Academy Awards. Now, the Academy Awards, you can't get in unless you're like a nominee that year. So even if you were, Julia Roberts, unless you were nominated that year, you don't go in. Like, it's not a thing.
Okay.
It's only for the people that are nominated that year. But there's all kinds of parties throughout the city. Like, literally the city shuts down, and there's the week of award shows. So, I saw the animated features like presented, all those awards that they say like previously this week. I was at all those, the animated shorts, the sound, and then for the actual Academy Awards, I was sitting in front of a fireplace at a very swanky Beverly Hills hotel getting bottle service. It was actually the official champagne party of the Oscars. So
you gotta love that.
Yeah. And again, they probably thought I was somebody, and nope.
You were the Blue Man Group, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's a picture floating around.
Exactly. You're like, hey, is that a Blue Man?
So I know you've got a couple cool hockey stories that maybe we'll finish off with. I thought maybe I'd switch gears if you don't mind and talk a little bit about your current role. So actually, you know, I never played any hockey at any level whatsoever, but you and I are actually now on the same team at the Windsor Essex Economic Development Corporation. You being the manager of investment and corporate marketing, and I serve as a volunteer director on the board. A couple of business questions, if you don't mind. How long have you been with Lead C, and how have you found the transition from hockey into the business world?
So I've been with Weed C for just over a year now. Prior to that, I was with the university for a few years and also Chrysler. You can tell, I don't know if you could just pick up on this, like literally my brain switches and I talk different. I don't swear anymore. So that was a bit of a transition. Honestly, Chris, and you know, I'm completely vocal about this in the community and wherever I am. Like, I think the amount of work and the quality of work that Weed C does is phenomenal. It's the effort and the quality of individuals that work for that organization and the amount of diligence they give to the community to help the economy, the entire economy do better it's world class. Like, I'm incredibly proud to work there. Going to the other question, the transition of the business world. I didn't find it hard because I think I had enough years of transition. Like I stopped playing in 2010, and then I went back to school and did my undergrad and then my grad, my MBA. So I kind of had 4 years of a transition time. So I was like a hockey guy right out of, you know, my first year while I was an undergrad. I was 25 or so. And then I'd say every year it kind of chipped away. Like I became more of the business student or more of the, you know, the entrepreneur, whatever it might be, and a little less of the hockey guy. And then honestly, the year that kind of switched my mindset completely was the year that I did my master's in business. I was always Ryan, the hockey guy that was a business student. And then that year I made a conscious decision to go, no, I'm a business person that used to be a hockey player. And the minute I kind of made that switch in my mind, that's how I approached it. And everybody's, I think, approached it the same way. I mean, Chris, you didn't know as of a few weeks ago that I played hockey. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's part of the history, right? It's you know, lots of people have different careers along the way, and mine just happened to be cool and it was hockey. But I think it's transitioned and allowed me to bring a lot of those skill sets to the business world. You know, there's inherent competition. You know, if Matt Johnson and I are out there trying to source business that could literally locate around the world, there's the competition. We want them in Windsor. It's a win, right? Sure. So it's fun. Like there's a lot of translatable skills.
Well, it's funny that leads really nicely into my next question. It's almost like I gave them to you in advance, which I did not, by the way. So you and I sit on these pretty terrible calls. I think the Economic Development Corp has done a great job leading the COVID task force here in Windsor, Essex, but I think you'll admit they're pretty depressing in terms of as we go sector by sector and hear some of the challenges. So let's flip it back to the positive piece. Heading into this pandemic, Windsor Essex was doing some pretty phenomenal things. We were growing the economy. Things had probably arguably never been better, where today you could argue they maybe have never been worse. So the peak and valley that we've lived through in literally 6 to 12 months has been quite significant. So let's go back to the good days. And is there a particular team win that you can think of with your colleagues that you think, wow, that's the one I'm most proud of in your time with Weed C?
You know, honestly, I can say it because the company's like it's out there now. It was actually probably my first win, Matt and I's first win when I was on the team. And this is only about 2 months into working with Weed C. And it was actually at the time when Donald Trump was imposing steel tariffs from China.
Yeah. So
we had a gentleman approach us. That's crazy that was even in the radar. I mean, yeah, that feels like decades ago, but it was actually like a year ago. Yeah. So we had a gentleman that sourced his product from China. He was an American-based company. It was a laser company. So what he basically does is ship these full assembled lasers that would engrave like a headstone or a big, you know, piece of wood or something like that from China to the U.S. And what he came to us and said, I'm getting killed on these tariffs right now. Right now it's 10% for every product I bring in, which is killing my margins. And he basically said, I've got like 2 weeks while there's a container on the water with all these shipments that if it lands, it's 25% now because Trump was pushing it up. Right. And he said, what can you do for us? So myself and Matt, I don't know if you recall this, but me and Matt sat down and started going through the at the time was NAFTA and trying to figure out different product codes. And basically what we convinced him to do, and he has since done, is ship assembled or disassembled pieces from China of this laser, bring it into Canada, into Windsor, assemble it up so that it becomes a Canadian-made product, and then ship it now down to the United States. So what he actually does now is ship individual components into Windsor, some local parts, of course, create a Canadian-made product, and then sell that product to his American-based company, and then bring the laser down to the United States where the majority of his customers are. So it was a creative way to approach a global problem. And it's one of those things where we did it because we thought we could do it. And working with Matt, it was a ton of fun. And it's going to be 20, 30, 40 jobs this year, and hopefully more if the company continues to grow. The company's called AP Laser.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So, obviously Windsor is not an exception. We're struggling right now with employment, and every sector that we talk about has really been struggling. How do you feel in terms of the forecast and what you see the Windsor economy relative to our peers, relative to other Ontario cities, other Canadian provinces, globally Canada relative to its peers? I don't need a long-winded answer, but just do you have a sense of optimism that things are going to rebound here?
I've got a tremendous amount of optimism for a number of reasons. I think just as far as the geographic positioning of where Windsor Essex is relative to the rest of North America it's a competitive advantage that not many other regions have. I mean, we're at the heart of North America, and within the 8 to 10 hour radius, you can hit 250 million people. Which, if you're out in Regina, you don't have that sense of growth. I think that the leadership with Weeds, he's done a tremendous job in shifting, going from, of course, there's short wins, like there's the 30 job, 40 job here and there that you try to pile up so that the economy continues to chug and keep going. But I'd say that the strategic leadership by Steve and the other directors in trying to create these 5, 10, 20, 30-year projects where it transforms the entire economy. We've got a number of those on the go. I mean, right now, we're really working hard on transitioning Windsor Essex from the automotive capital of Canada to the automobility capital of Canada, using our advanced manufacturing cluster here. So, people talk about connected and autonomous vehicles. Windsor Essex and the Detroit region should be the hub of that again. And that's some of the work that we're doing. And I think that's going to position us extremely well long-term.
Timmy, just before we switch back to some hockey, I just wanted to compliment Ryan and the team at Weedsy. I know this isn't meant to be, it's supposed to be a hockey interview, but as a director on the board, I have a Weedsy guy here. I can't help but give him the opportunity to talk about some positive things happening here in Windsor Essex. And he's right. He's surrounded with an awesome team. It's pretty, in a small way, just being a small part of it, but seeing what's happening here in Windsor Essex. I know even from the business that I run here, anytime I pick up the phone and I need Matt or Ryan or Steve or any of the guys, the answers come on time, more than I've expected. And if I ask them, this can't leave this room, it never does. But these guys are true champions and working hard every day to make this place a better place. And obviously the numbers were proof positive coming into this thing. And I think we're in the right hands coming out of this. So thank you, Ryan, for all that you guys have done.
Thank you, Chris. And thank you to the leadership of the board to allow us to do a lot of these things. I mean, you and the rest of the board have given us latitude to dream big, if you will, at times. Obviously keeping track of the wins, but dreaming big, and that's what we've done. And I think that's what's going to set this region apart for the long future.
Keep it up, buddy.
Thanks, Chris.
Absolutely. Well done. Accentuate the positive, right? My dad used to always say that. So let's go with that.
Yeah, general patent, perpetual optimism is a force multiplier.
Right on.
So
Ryan, maybe I'll segue into the next hockey question. Before we started, you were showing us a photo on your wall. Can you give us that story?
Yeah, I can I pardon my poor videography skills here, but I'll kind of show you a little bit of backstory. So here I've got the Windsor-Detroit border right there, of course, because I've got to represent the region. I've got a couple of my favorite movies. You can see a little bit about me. I'm serious, but not really.
Yeah.
You can pick up that photo right there. You can kind of pick it up. But anyways, it's that's a photo of me covered in blood. And I keep it there for a couple of reasons. Obviously a nod to the past and being an elite athlete and literally fighting for my job on a daily basis. I keep it there because of that. I keep it there because it was, it kind of signifies something important to me too. That was a game where we were getting beat 3-0, I think, at the time. I was playing in Des Moines, Iowa for in the American Hockey League, and we were playing against Peoria. And if you know anything about hockey these days, there's a pretty tough guy in the NHL named Ryan Reeves.
Oh, yeah.
So we were down 3-0, and I said, hey, let's give this guy a shot. Let's see how it goes. And so, yeah, it was a great fight. I mean, you can find it on YouTube somewhere that he ended up splitting me for a few stitches. Where is it? Over here.
Oh, boy.
I say a few, like 50, give or take. And it was a great fight, but I knew I was bleeding kind of coming out of it, and I said, screw it. You know what? Let's just wipe my face in blood and then celebrate to the crowd like I won. And sure enough, the crowd went nuts. There's 10,000 people there, and they were going crazy. And we came back for the win. So,
oh, right on.
Yeah, and I honestly, the reason I keep it there is because it's like it kind of shows you're willing to do whatever it takes. And at that time, for me, it was getting punched in the face a few times.
Yeah.
So, it's not just a cool photo.
It's a cool photo and a cool story.
Yeah, for my basement that literally nobody else comes down into. So I guess it's for me.
And would he be the toughest guy you fought?
I'll have to somehow get it to Ryan Reeves.
No, I'd say the toughest guy I fought. I mean, it depends on the year, right? I fought Brian McGrath when I was 16 years old and he was 21. Oh, that was dumb. Hopefully we were wearing visors that went down to here, like in the old OHL days. They bring about 10 off my face. Francis Lassard was pretty tough. The toughest guy I ever fought, though, was a guy named Jeremy Oblonsky. And if you're ever bored of hockey fights or bored and you want to watch hockey fights, watch Jeremy Oblonsky and John Morasti fight each other. They're actually second cousins. The best fights you'll ever see. Like the guy, he was 6'3", not kidding, 6'3", 240, 250, trained cage fighter, 6-time Golden Gloves champ. I'm not kidding. Worst hockey player you've ever seen. And just stand there and just do this.
So he had a job.
Yeah, but he played 30 seconds a game, and that was the 30 seconds he tried to find a fight. So
I remember Morasti from when Cornwall had a senior team in the Quebec Senior League. That was some pretty tough hockey.
Crazy tough. So yeah, those would be the toughest guys, I'd say. Ryan Flynn was a pretty tough guy. I fought him. Honestly, for a period of time there, when I was 21 through 23, if there was a guy that was playing pro hockey, I would have fought him. Like I was in that conversation of all those meatheads, and now I'm working for Chris at the Economic Development Agency.
Any idea how many fights you had, Ryan?
About 100.
Wow.
Yeah, about 100 fights.
Wow.
Most of us would get one of those and call it a day. That'd be the end of that, right?
Honestly, like it's sad because you've seen the pathways that some of these guys have gone down, and the drugs and alcohol and all this type of stuff, and I don't mean to shift to a negative light, but
no.
But
it's true. It's reality, right?
There's a dark side of that fighting. Like it's more mental than it is physically. Like you don't really get hurt that much in a hockey fight. It's more of the mental buildup, right? So guys are getting ready to play a game, and I'm skating around after pregame skate, right? So pregame skate, the home team skates, visiting team skates, and then you have lunch and you take a nap and whatever.
Yeah.
So I would know who's in the lineup for them after pregame skate. So if there's a guy like Jeremy Oblonsky in the lineup, and I know that I'm the guy that would have to fight him if he does anything dumb or needs to fight for some reason, all the guys are going back and they're having their pasta and chicken, and then they're having a nap and they're ready to go. And I'm sitting there going, and this is the early days of YouTube. I'm going like, what can I learn about this guy on a hockey fight so I don't get my head punched in? Yeah. So guys would be sitting having naps, and I'd be sitting there going like, researching how not to get beat up by this guy.
Wow. Now there's a side that you never hear of. I mean, you hear about the guys being a little apprehensive about going into a game because you got to drop them. But there's a something that you just, the general hockey fan probably doesn't know.
No, they would never know, right? Like it's one of those things that, like, if you're not prepared to do that, like you're self-preservation at that point, right? Like, if I don't know that this guy's a lefty and likes to throw a quick 3 punches right off the start, I'm going to walk into one, and before you know it, I'm going to be unconscious on the ice.
Yeah.
So you had to be prepared. So, that's one part of it. And then the other challenging part is you don't really get hurt, but like you'd have bruises and bumps and like that would just be on your body. I had a black eye for about a year, my whole year in the American Hockey League.
Wow.
And then the other thing, I don't tell a lot of people this, but I broke my nose pretty good my first year pro. And then most fights, anytime I got kind of jabbed in the nose, it would break again, just a little bit.
Man.
So this isn't me being the tough guy, but I'd look at myself in the mirror at 11 o'clock at night after the game, after going out for dinner or whatever, and all right, well, my nose isn't very straight right now.
Oh
And
no.
I would sit in front of the mirror and straighten it. I'm not kidding. I've done that 30, 40 times.
Wow.
So, no wonder these guys are little nuts. And if you do that for a decade, right? If you look at my hands, like that's how much I can open my right hand. That's how much I can open my left hand.
Wow.
So,
And that's just because from all the bruising and all the cuts and everything else.
Yeah, punching people. I mean, helmets aren't that soft.
No, absolutely not.
So, I don't wear a wedding ring because I destroyed this finger. I broke these knuckles, so I can't open my hand all the way.
Wow.
And Chris inadvertently hired me for some reason to work in economic development.
It's funny, we said we'd keep you 20, 30 minutes, and we've now gone north of 40, and I think we could probably go another 40 if we wanted to, but we're going to be conscious of your time. And first of all, I want to say two things. Obviously, a huge thank you for taking the time and being our guinea pig. Episode 1, we weren't sure how this was going to go. I think you made it easy for us because we just kind of love the questions and you tell the great stories. Point number 2, obviously, some big days ahead for the Donally family. Next week or sometime shortly, you're expecting is a baby number 2, I believe. So congratulations to you and your family, and our best wishes for everything going extremely well. And I guess I'd like to say on behalf of Tim and I, and really if I could be so, full of myself to speak for the entire community of Windsor, Essex, both as a Spit alumni and somebody today who's out knocking on doors trying to make our lives better here economically. Thank you for being such a great ambassador for the city of Windsor. We thank you for taking the time and being so gracious with your time to do this with us. And we really appreciate it, and hopefully we'll have you back somewhere down the road if there's ever another episode.
My pleasure, guys. I'd actually, well, hopefully not. I mean, hopefully I don't get this thing censored. I think I swore a couple times in there, so.
Oh, that's okay.
It's on YouTube.
That's all right.
But no, I appreciate it, Chris. Tim, thank you very much. And
Thanks a lot, Ryan.
Literally anytime you want me on, I'm willing to hop in and help. And if you ever need a substitute for Chris, because Tim, you just recognize he's not holding his weight, I can sub in.
Probably a good idea, you know that, right?
Good stuff, man. I'm going to remember that, Ryan.
All right, guys.
All right, thanks, everybody.